valued ISPA partners and the opportunities they can offer to our diverse portfolio of members. Today, we will be covering a wide array of products and services that can help your ISPs thrive, whether you are looking to provide improved business services, reduce cost to serve, or bolster your XGS on provisions. All insights will be provided in this webinar. I'm pleased today to be joined by Rupert Erskine, who's Channel Manager at Draytek UK and Ireland, John Cassidy, who's Business Development Manager at Ciena, and finally, long-term partner, Viavi, with colleagues Ross Stoddart and Mark Easton speaking on behalf of Viavi there. Just a few little points to me before we start. If you do have any questions, each partner has a 15-minute slot, and there'll be opportunities for questions at the end. If you've got any questions about the products or the presentations they make today, if you put them in the chat, I'll then follow up with them as they finish off their presentation. If you want to follow up with them, you feel free to get in touch with me at the end of that. I can pass on the contacts of the variety of speakers here today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Rupert, who's speaking on behalf of Draytek, who will be discussing the current ISP sector and showcasing some of the products from Draytek's new Vigor range and how they can boost ISP services. So Stuart, so to start, Rupert, what do you think the challenges for the ISP market in 2024 would be?
Well, thank you, and obviously thank you for having me. It's great to be with you virtually. I think the challenges with the ISP market at the moment is that sort of gone are the days of sort of offering connectivity. You know, going into a building, a business, a premise, and saying, you know, do you need connectivity? Do you need broadband? It's like, yeah, we've got that now. You know, we're done. It's actually now developing that, and we look to sort of develop that in sort of 5 areas. So it's maximising connectivity, making sure you have failover or backup solution, so you're always connected, and maximising the speeds, make sure we're as fast as possible. And then it's like, okay, well, for maximising the speeds, why do we need to do that? Well, it's the development of IoT, Internet of Things, and actually network equipment within that network. And then once you've done that, also it's developing sharing from business from site to site, so how we do that, and then also protecting that network as well. So those are the kind of 5 themes, and we'll sort of touch upon those solutions within this presentation now. So I'll just share my screen. Bear with me. I believe it's this one here. Press share. Great stuff. So those are the kind of the 5 things we'll talk about, and they're sort of covered within these products here. So we've got the 5G router, the 2927 LAX, and then the 3912. And within this, we'll go over the overview, sort of product comparisons, where it'll fit in that range. So yeah, we'll sort of touch upon this now. So this is, as mentioned, the 5G router. So the 5G router is our Wi-Fi 6 router with a built-in 5G LTE modem. So not only has it got a 5G LTE built-in modem, it's got a dual SIM slot, and it has got a dual gigabit WAN. So it's got a WAN port, but also for load balancing. It does Wi-Fi 6 as mentioned. It's a VPN router, so it can share information from site to site. It also does Vigor ACS, so that's the ability to manage it in the cloud. I'll touch upon ACS at the end and some of the benefits around that. And then sort of some of the physical dimensions within that. It's got 4 5G antennas and 2 wireless LAN antennas. So that's sort of some of the highlights. If we delve a bit deeper from a physical perspective, obviously number 1 shows the LED status, shows the physical power, whether it's got Wi-Fi, whether it's connected, whether the WAN ports or LAN ports are working. It's got a USB port, so for sort of sharing information physically into the device. It's got 1 dedicated WAN port, and then 1 WAN port that can be turned into a LAN port, and then 4 LAN ports. So what that means is that you've got 2 WAN ports going into the device. If one fails, it'll flick over to the other. And we do something called WAN optimization, which is basically where it's constantly scanning for the best WAN port. A bit like, you know, I'm sort of in London today, but if I'm driving to Bristol, you know, with your sat nav, it's constantly looking for the best route and it'll go, right, actually, you need to come off the M4, you need to move on to this motorway, and it'll just flick you over. And that's exactly what we do with sort of WAN optimization. And then it's obviously got the two dual SIM slots. So it does 5G and it falls back to 4G. I know we're sort of in the ISP market at the moment, like we're all real gunning for 5G. It's not quite there in every sort of area yet. So we have 4G as a backup. And then it's also obviously does wireless LAN and Wi-Fi 6 as well. So that's the 5G router. And it sort of sits in this product range here. So if you're just looking at this router going, actually, Rupert, we just need a gigabit WAN router with 2 WAN ports for failover, then the 2927 is appropriate. If you're actually saying, actually, we need just wireless, then we've got the 11AC. If you're saying, actually, we need the sort of the 5G, 4G backup, then we've got the 2927 LAC. And then we've got the 2927 AX, which obviously has Wi-Fi 6, and then the 2927 with the 5G. I just want to touch upon as well with the antennas, they can be detached and put outside the building. Because obviously with this router, as I sort of said at the beginning, it's maximizing connectivity, you know, almost guaranteeing your connectivity with the backup of 5G. And if you're sort of sitting there, well, that's great, Rupert, but our router will go in the server at the bottom of the basement. That 5G won't get in through the basement due to the thick walls. You can turn around to the customer and go, actually, Mr. Customer, no problem. You can detach the antennas and put them on the outside of the building as well. So that's why it's called the aerial. So again, sort of maximizing that connectivity with the speeds, with the failover, and then sort of obviously the development of internet applications within the network. So that's the 2927 series. So you touch upon the 3912 now. So that's this device here. So this actually has 12 gigabit speed throughput. So it's got 10 gig SPs plus, and then 2.5 gig LAN ports. Well, and obviously it sort of sits within the 3910 range. Sort of it precedes the 3910. And as you can see from some of the features down the side, it's got faster NAT, faster SSL, and faster WireGuard. But the main sort of key product, sort of key theme with this, and sort of like I sort of touched upon at the beginning, with the development of IoT and the development of a network. At the moment, sort of Wi-Fi 6 is becoming more popular, but actually Wi-Fi 7 is coming around the corner. And actually to maximize Wi-Fi 7 and really Wi-Fi 6 to a degree, you need a multi-gig switch. So you need 2.5 gig ports. So this is what this router does as well. But it also needs 10 gig speeds, you know, out to the WAN, you know, to actually maximize and really fill the full throttle of all your devices in the network. And this is what this product does here. It also has faster VPN connections, so obviously faster speeds, but I'll sort of talk about some of the developments and isolation. So touch upon that, sort of protecting the network. Just on the next slide. So yeah, so these are just some of the features here. So it's got actually 8 WAN ports, you know, 8 WAN LAN ports. So you can obviously have this as your main router and then decouple that network through a building, through a premise, which I'll sort of touch upon in a bit. So obviously got 2.5 gig ports as well. So you can plug multi-gig switches and Wi-Fi 6. So this is really designed to build and grow your business. Like I said, it's just not about offering connectivity anymore. It's about maximizing that connectivity, maximizing the speeds, and obviously development of the network and IoT applications. Obviously now also it's got the additional security feature as well, which I'll sort of touch upon in the next slide. And that's got the ability to isolate VPNs. Because obviously, yeah, you can use this to sort of share from site to site the various VPN tunnels, but you sort of might be thinking and going, well, we need some sort of isolation. So how do we do that, Rupert? Well, we can do that with the isolation feature on the device and actually in the GUI. So we've got this sort of network and site here. So LAN 2, I've got staff, and they can share to LAN 1 server, so they can talk backwards and forwards, but we can actually isolate it. So some part of the LANs don't talk to the server. And then another topology here is if you've got a guest network, as we always do, Like I said, people are offering guest Wi-Fi to their customers and or to their people who are coming into a building. You can isolate them completely from the network, and that can be set up here in the GUI here, as seen here. So yeah, so not only being able to share from site to site through businesses, but also protecting that network as well. Okay. So some more additional features, obviously within VPN, you're probably all sitting there thinking, well, that's great, Rupert, business to business. But what about people who are VPNing remotely, people are working from home or on the move? How can we sort of isolate them? I know we can do that here with these additional security features as shown here. So we can actually isolate people within the network. So you can protect them from core areas from a server or a network, and that's shown here. We can develop it further as well. So not only can we isolate remote users, but we can also isolate and connect and help people who are remote workers full time, so not just on the move. And this is how we would do it here. We can actually, with this device, support up to 500 VPN tunnels. So quite some options there. So we can really start to scale up, really start to build the business as sort of businesses grow. And like I said at the beginning of this, so it's not just about offering Wi-Fi anymore. It's about protecting that network, sharing from site to site, development applications and speeds. We can also do something called server load balancing with the 3912. So if the 3912 is connected into multiple servers and one server sort of fails or it has a backup, then we can flick it over to the next server. So you can start to, obviously gone are the days of just one server on one site that we need to connect to and have information. We can actually do multiple sites and multiple things. That sort of can be done through the load balancing. So this is Drayos here. So this is our sort of customized GUI, which I've sort of is touched upon at ACS, which I'll sort of touch upon a bit later. But this is sort of the dashboard. So you can see how much usage is going through the device, the firmwares, the MAC addresses, how well it's performing, whether there are any issues with the device itself. So you can make sure it is pushing it to the best level, maximizing the connectivity, maximizing the speeds, making sure everyone who's using it for whatever reasons within that network is really enhancing their sort of productivity. Because that's the other thing, right? Obviously, the things are covered, but actually, people need to be online the whole time. They need to. We're all so busy in IT right now that we need to be online 24/7 to really maximize our offering. So from an ISP perspective, the 3912 is really good for FTTP connections. And as you can see here from this diagram, the 3912 can go directly into the fiber exchange. So you won't need like sort of a router or another thing inside. It can go directly in, and then that router there, obviously that has a 10 gig speeds going into the 3912, and then you can decouple that 10 gig speeds down to 1 gig, and then you can offer it around a building. Within that, you've got sort of layer 2 security, so you've got that next level of security, and then also layer 3 for routing as well. So really starting to enhance and obviously focusing on that speed capability. This router here, the 3912, will really start to feel the full throttle of the speeds coming from sort of the FTTP development that sort of have happened in the ISP market. So who are the targets for this device? ISPs, managed offices. So you think about that. Obviously, the fiber's going into that building, and you've got multiple offices within that. You can then decouple that 3912 and offer that router from some building to building. So then each managed office can have real high speeds. Obviously, business users, hotels, and then large offices. So this is where this would be really appropriate. And it can all be managed via ACS3, which I'll touch upon now. So ACS, we have ACS and then we have ACS free. So ACS comes free with the device, with all our switches, access points, firewalls, and routers, and we can do things like automatic discovery. So is the device online? Yes, it is. It's registered here. We can do some provisioning, so to get it online. We can monitor, so to check it's working. We can do centralized hierarchy view. So if you think about this scenario here, where you've got the fiber exchange and that's going to the 3912, that could be like the top of the admin level. And then each managed office could be below that hierarchy view. So they could be someone seeing a little bit less in terms of admin rights, a little bit less in speeds as well. Obviously, we can reboot the device and we can do some quick VLAN configuration. So that's ACS. But then in terms of ACS free, our cloud version, there's obviously a cost associated to do that, but that gives you the next steps in terms of that monitoring and actually doing the analytics. What devices are in the network? Who's taking a lot of the speed? What applications are divided? You know, how many times are you having to flick over from the WAN to the 5G or the WAN failover? So it's those next bits. The other key bit is the alarm. So we can actually push out alarms and alerts via emails to certain users to say, that access point's gone down, that switch has gone down. And, you know, you can be still one step ahead of the game, right? Because if a device goes down, you will know before the customer does. So when they ring you up, so we've got some problems, actually, we've just changed something and we've resolved it. We can also do scheduled maintenance. If we go back to that business case scenario there, let's say, 9 till 6, everyone's on. We know 6 till 9, we can do firmware upgrades, push out certain updates and stuff because less people are using devices within the network. Okay, I'll just, this is obviously the front panel as discussed. Some just updates in terms of comparisons to the 3912 to the 3910. And this is where it sits in the network. So we've obviously got the 3912, which obviously precedes the 3910, and then we've got the 2962, which has some less WAN ports and is a smaller, more cost-effective solution. So where, things are essential, where rather than desirable, this product would fit there. And that's it. I hope that's
perfect. Thanks, Rupert. Just before we move on, I was just going to have kind of one question to pose to you, just to bring it to kind of the high level context of the market and where we currently are. Obviously, a lot of ISPs are looking to kind of get that ROI back and diversifying their product portfolio away from the kind of consumer end and looking to provide business services on top of it. Where do you think kind of Draytek's products sit within that and the products you presented today? Where are the best opportunities and how can you help ISPs kind of transition away from consumer and into business services?
Yeah, so for us, it obviously it's within businesses. It's looking at, Draytek have always been very good, and we've been very strong in areas where, if you, take your, I don't know what router you have at home, but for argument's sake, let's say it's a BT Home Hub router. Would you put that in your office? Would you go into somewhere like, like sort of a Waitrose or a big sort of large enterprise office? Would you put that as your router? No, because you need decent failovers, you need decent speeds, you need decent firewall. And that's where we've come to the market and said, Mr. Customer, spend a little bit more on your router. We'll give you those business grade enterprise features at a cost effective price. So that's where we'll go. Obviously, we can deal reg and we can offer some really attractive margin. And we've got a full pre-sales team to help support you on the way. So if there's one last thing if there's one thing you take from us today, is that we want to help you and we'll support you on the way with your customers and offer you, I sort of say, enterprise grade products for sort of SMB prices, shall we say?
That makes sense. I'm sure some people would be interested to hearing more about that, and I'm sure I can send you contacts with anyone that does want to get in touch. But thanks very much for your time, Rupert.
No problem.
For the sake of speed, we're moving straight on to John Cassidy, who's Business Development Manager at Ciena, who's going to be sharing some thoughts and insights into some of Ciena's work they do with ISPs, both globally and across the UK. Today, I think XGS PON provisions is on the topics. So John, without further ado, please feel free to take it away from here.
Thank you. Are you driving the slides from there? Are you wanting me to share my?
If you feel free to share the screen, you share your screen there, John.
No problems at all. Just got to find the right. There we go.
We are good.
Okay, I think somebody needs to stop sharing. I can't share until they've stopped.
Rupert, could you please? Thank you. Perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
there we go. Up and running, John. Thank you.
Right, thank you. And you can all hear me okay?
Yep.
Good. Okay, so I'm here to talk today about PON, XGS PON, and Ciena's particular variant of that. One of the reasons we got into PON is quite simply we saw a gap, we saw an issue, and what we came into the market for was to try and solve a customer's problem. So we believe that deploying an open disaggregated solution will allow you to scale your network in line with your revenue and unlock yourself from locked-in vendor solutions. So in other words, it gives you freedom and it gives you capability to do something different, to do something at a different price point. And so this is the ultimate reason why we wanted to go and talk to our customers. So what is it that we do? Principally, it's a disaggregated, and I'll just hold it up so you can see the actual size of it. It's a very tiny plug. Now this is an OLT. It's a disaggregated OLT. It works in Ciena routers, but it also works in EdgeCore, Cisco, Juniper, Ribbon, Harmonic. You can see the full list there of different host platforms that we work in. But the principle behind this is that a single port on a router can become an OLT for your XGS PON network. And that means it has various impacts. I mean, number one, you're combining your router and OLT onto a single platform. So as you can understand, that's saving you cost for a second platform. It's saving you costs for a second management system for that second platform. It's saving you costs of optical interfaces between the two platforms, OLT and router. It's also allowing you to go on a port by port basis. So you can see that the whole thing is designed to allow you to scale your network in an entirely different way. So these plugs are both eTemp and iTemp. Majority that we see being sold are the standard temperature range eTemp, and that's perfectly acceptable in the UK market. It can, like I say, it can be deployed in any third-party host platform. All we need is 3.3 watts of power, max power at startup. And then it averages out at something like 2 watts per port. And it needs to be a 10 gig port. So we can work with anybody and we can work in any scenario as long as it's a 10 gig port with 3.3 watts of power. So the real benefit to this is that you don't need to change any of your existing vendors or systems. If you want to start rolling out XGS PON into areas, then you can simply plug this into your existing routers and you've got a single port of OLT that you can run your shared PON access networks from. In terms of interoperability, we work with pretty much all of the main chipset manufacturers. One of the ones not listed on here is Tibit. Is Nokia, but we can work with Nokia as well. But the whole point of our solution is that we are not trying to lock you into an ONU. We're not trying to lock you into a huge ONT deployment. We're allowing you to. We're not even locking you into using the Ciena host platforms, even though there are some advantages to using those platforms. We're not saying you have to do that. As you can see, there's a huge list here of different boxes. We're also working with Heights. We're working with Fritzbox. We're working with loads and loads of different vendors out there in order to give you the flexibility that you need. So if you look at the Ciena platform, these are two platforms that I can show you. Just we have other platforms as well, but these are the ones that I felt were most pertinent. In today's market, we've seen a lot of altnets go out there, and they've been covering a lot of homes passed. They've covered a whole lot of area, but they haven't had necessarily the uptake and the connectivity to the home. So homes passed has not equals home connected. And now, with as you all know and are all living, the fact that the market has changed, the money is now based on homes connected, not homes passed, and that leaves everybody in a much more sticky situation in terms of, right, we've now got to find the money to connect those customers. We've then got to do all the due diligence around that customer area to work out how many customers we need to make the fiber connection worthwhile, be it aerial or be it ground fiber. So we're seeing that in the marketplace. So one of the things that we are bringing to the party is that if you're trying to deploy and you're trying to get homes connected to unlock the next round of revenue, then throwing the old solution at the problem isn't necessarily the right way to do it. So we believe that by scaling down your PON costs and deployment costs, you can hit more people in an area. So, for example, if road A has got 1,000 customers on it, or 100 customers even on it, and that pays the business case over the next few years, then that's easy, no problems. The existing solutions can work. But what happens if you go down a road and you've only got 10 houses that want connecting, and you need another 90? What ends up happening is you put them on a waiting list, BT Openreach, or someone flies by them and says, we'll upgrade you to GPON, and they go and jump on their fiber, and you end up losing out on those customers, and you're still not getting the homes connected targets that your investors are wanting. So by deploying on a port by port basis with a single port OLT, that gives you an advantage, because you can scale down to you can scale down to one home if you really wanted, or up to a maximum of 128 homes. But we often see one plug serves 32 or even 64 homes, depending on distance and how many splitters you've got and what kind of rates you want to give. But we've also got all outdoor routers. Now, the two routers that you can see there, the 5131 and the 3985, are completely hardened. The 3985 is a IP5X rated solution. The 5131 is an IP6X rated solution, and I believe it's 68. So it's fully waterproof, and it's been tested in a waterproof environment. So these boxes are designed to be deployed outside. They can be wall mounted, pole mounted, and even strand mounted, but that's a US thing as opposed to a UK thing. The beauty of these boxes is that they are MPLS edge routers, so they can do SRMPLS, they can do EVPN, they can do all your standard VLANs. They're a fully fledged router. And they have the 5131 has got 12 ports of 1025 gig and 2 ports of 100 gig coherent, or grey, whichever one you want, but it's a QSFP-DD port. And then the 3985 has got 6 ports of 1025. So obviously you can have one backhaul at 25, and you can have 5 access connections at 10 gig PON. But the key to this is that by deploying an all outdoor solution and not deploying a cabinet, you're saving on a whole load of additional costs. Number one, you're not buying a separate router and a separate OLT. Number two, you're not buying a cabinet. Number two, you're not paying number four, you're not paying all the civils that you need for deploying a cabinet-based solution. So you've got to make sure that you've got access capability, that if you've got protection around the site that you're working on, so people don't walk in and hurt themselves. There's a whole load of things that you have to do for health and safety, for permissions, and there's a whole cost to that. And so what this allows you to do is to go and get those customers that want to connect to you, but your current business case can't serve. This allows you to go get them. And then obviously this scales up accordingly, and you can start building your network so it scales along with the word of mouth you get on that road because you're providing a good service to those customers. So in terms of management, we have two ways of managing the solution. So we have a platform called MCMS, and this is it's a x86 server-based solution, and you can run it on any server that you have in your network. In a third-party router, a third-party host, you just need to have a VLAN back to the MCMS to where the router where the plugs are hosted. You need a VLAN from those plugs to MCMS in order to control those plug ports. If you use a Ciena host, we terminate the PON control on the Ciena router itself, and that means it's just a standard management layer 3 connection from MCMS to the router. And then obviously you've got API or netconf yang interfaces are available through MCMS, and in the case of Ciena router, for configuration of the router, you've got netconf yang and APIs available through directly on the box itself. So you've got full automatability, if that's even a word, to run your network from either MCMS or directly to the plugs and the routers themselves. This MCMS can be deployed centrally, or it can be deployed locally. MCMS as a platform is a 3-tiered system. So you have the GUI and the APIs and netconf yang interfaces which is one part of MCMS. The second part is the database, and the third part is the PON OAM. And these can be deployed in a distributed way, or you can deploy them all centrally. So it doesn't really matter where you deploy MCMS. You can split it up so it fits your network the way you want to fit it. Oops, there we go. So finally, we'll talk a little bit about virtual BNG. So Ciena purchased a company called Benu at the end of 2022. And we've since been integrating that into our portfolio. But what the virtual BNG, and I won't spend too much time on here on this because we are running low on time now, but the virtualized BNG allows you several advantages over a standard monolithic BNG. Number one, you can scale up. So you can scale up like any BNG in terms of you can scale up the number of nodes that you deploy in a virtual world. You can scale the number of user planes and the control planes, but you can scale it out as well. So you can give it the size capacity it needs because you can give it the compute. So you don't have to keep deploying new boxes. You can scale up and you can scale out. So the key to this as well is that we are splitting our user plane and control plane function. So in other words, you can have a much more centralized control plane and then a distributed user plane. We are currently integrating the user plane onto our Ciena router systems. So you will, in 2025, you will be able to get the user plane working on the 81XX portfolio from Ciena, which will allow you to have a virtual BNG user plane inside the box itself. But you can also run it in a separated way. This can be an LNS, or it can be a full BNG. We have several opportunities and deployments around the world. Some in Italy. We've got some testing in Switzerland right now. So this is being looked at by tier 1s and tier 2s and tier 3 operators all the way around the world. Okay, and that's me. If you would like at all to discuss anything with us, talk to us about pricing or POCs, then you can reach out to myself, or you can reach out to our partners, Nomios. and we will make sure that we get all the information you need. Thank you very much for your time.
Perfect. Thanks, John, for that. And I did Google it. Automatability is actually a word. So to confirm that one, it
Excellent.
definitely is. And just before we move on, just got maybe a couple of little questions for you, because you
Sure.
talked about kind of the open disaggregated element of it and how it's interoperable. So obviously you're aware in the UK market now there's a lot of consolidation happening. How does Ciena's product and the open source element of it work when there's a series of networks consolidating? Obviously the altnets are expected to amalgamate their networks.
Yeah. So number one, the plugs themselves they fit and work in any platform out there. So you don't have to have a Ciena platform. You can plug it into existing systems and it interworks. If you've got an existing ONT install base, so long as that install base it can handle standard OMCI, i.e. standard, then we will be able to work with it. So that number one, that's one way that we can get into your network. And without making huge disruptions to your northbound IT systems. The other factor of it is that it's netconf and yang based. So in other words, you can automate it. You don't need to deploy a management system from us to make it work. So that's another factor that you can do. You can build your own database. You can build your own GUIs. You can have your own automated systems. Once the PON control is there, everything else can be done by yourselves. And the other factor is that we have an SI capability with our partners and internally in Ciena that allows us to create what we call a shim layer or resource adapter that we can make our systems look exactly like the existing systems you have. So your northbound provisioning systems don't need to change.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And in terms of the commercial implications of that,
we talked a lot about what the product can change in terms of cost of deployment. So we believe if you just compare us on a 256 port OLT versus 256 ports, including Ciena routers, we come out pretty much in line with the big players in the XGS PON market. But what we can do is we can scale down. We start to save money because our routing systems will allow you to do multiple business cases into one. So we are a router, so you don't deploy a second router. That's a whole load of cost taken out the business case. We can even do DWDM straight out the box. The box is designed for coherent plugs. So in other words, you don't need transponders at the far end as well. So we're trying to minimize the business case. In fact, to the point we believe that we're significantly cheaper when you look at that holistic business case. And then when you bring in the fact that you don't even need a cabinet in certain circumstances, we can be a lot cheaper than a standard install.
Okay, no, that makes good sense. And yeah, thank you again for sharing your insights and thoughts today. And I'm sure if anyone's interested to hear more, I can share your contacts with them and get them to reach out for you. But yeah, thanks, John. And I'm moving on to our final presentation of the day, and it's a bit of a Chaz and Days back and forth. We've got Mark Easton and Ross Stoddart from Viavi, who are going to be doing a bit of a fireside chat, looking at kind of reducing costs to serve across infrastructure networks, obviously with kind of increased investor scrutiny and cost requirements being scrutinized a bit more heavily. This could be something that could be useful for your network moving forward. So yeah, Ross, on to you there.
Thank you very much, Christian, and thanks for everyone being here today. As Christian said, I'm joined by my colleague, Mark Easton, for today's topic on reducing cost to serve, optimizing and automating network troubleshooting and deployments. So quick introductions. My name is Ross Stoddart, as Christian said. I'm a EMEA marketing manager at Viavi Solutions, and I'm joined by Mark Easton, who is the director of Transport Assurance Business Unit at Viavi. So just I'll give a quick intro to Viavi, just in case you're not entirely sure who we are or haven't heard of us. We are a global leader in communications test and measurement and optical technologies. We have over 1.8 million instruments in use across the globe, and over 3,500 employees as well in markets all over the world. We do actually have a long-standing history, so you may not have heard of the name Viavi, but you likely will have heard of one of these names on here. The company actually began way back in 1923. Last year we celebrated our 100-year anniversary of our foundations with a company called Wandon Goldsman back in Germany. Various mergers and acquisitions and name changes over the years, such as Acterna and JDSU, and in 2015 we rebranded to Viavi Solutions. So what do we actually do? Well, we, as I mentioned, we offer test and measurement solutions across the network lifecycle that enable service providers to build with quality, activate their new subscribers first time, and then operate their network efficiently. And we do that with a range of solutions across the network lifecycle to really allow our customers to optimize and automate their network solutions. So Mark is going to focus on that kind of last part of the puzzle piece, the operate efficiently part. So I will hand it over to Mark now.
Okay, thanks. Good morning, all. Yeah, still morning. So the title of this whole segment was reducing cost to serve, and one of the things we're observing, so Ross calls it the trouble with network troubleshooting, is that as your install base scales, basically your trouble ticket volume goes up linearly, and that means if you don't take some kind of action to break that curve, then you're literally adding techs, call centers, equipment, truck rolls, etc. in a linear fashion, and eventually it just becomes horrifically expensive at a point where shareholders are saying, how do you make the network more profitable, and how do you make the curve go down the way, that cost to serve or cost per circuit, how does that curve come down the way? And you heard that one in the previous presentation as well. So here I've got three kind of worked examples in sort of different flavors. So first one, unbundled access providers. So look across Europe where any of the kind of layer 2 bitstream type scenarios are playing out. You've got the last mile provider, and we've got a very public use case for this. You can Google it. Various retail partners connected onto that. So with the end customers, the paying customers. What happens is somebody in a house has an issue and phones up their favorite provider, who will then typically put the ticket onto the unbundled access provider. That's an expensive undertaking. The sort of default action is to roll a truck, tech visit, etc. Somebody in the house, all of a sudden, the kids are squealing, Fortnite stopped working, your work at home conference calls didn't work. They want actions in minutes. They're not reacting well to, we'll send someone on Friday. So the expectation is very, very high, and you've also got over time you will have a kind of SLA with regulatory burdens as well. So that if we take a model like that, and then you go to the next slide, Ross. Like I said, you've got the current paradigm today is almost and I had this last week. My internet went out, and the first thing that my provider said was, we're going to send someone. And it wasn't even we've got some diagnostics we can run. It's like, we're going to send someone. And as a small provider, you can kind of get away with that. Medium, larger providers, these costs basically start to eat you alive. But traditionally, that's the model. The way the industry is going, and we've now got various customers doing this, is fully automating it. The technician dispatch becomes almost the sort of last resort. Eliminate all other potential causes. If I'm a wholesale provider, I want to prove that my bit is working. So from the layer 2 switch right out to the ONT, I'm going to prove that that is in perfect operation. And if somebody raised a trouble ticket on me, then I can point back and say it's either in the house or it's in your core network or it's in the cloud or the network egress. So trying to shift from this traditional fully manual kind of default operation to everything's automated, even to the extent that trouble tickets then trigger automatic testing. So again, the previous presentation mentioned netconf yang. We've done that also. Full automation results, broadcast back north afterwards. And the reason you're doing it is A, customer satisfaction, but B, this cost to serve thing, eliminating pointless visits, and you're really having your technicians work on the areas where they're most likely to actually find a problem versus fault elimination.
Yeah, Mark, I'll just come in there actually, because I think that last point you mentioned is a really key one. One of the main issues that we always hear from our customers across various parts of the network, whether they're focused on their build or their kind of finding sort of issues with the troubleshooting like this, is always that people are a problem in the sense that they need more engineers. Sometimes they often can't train them up quick enough. So if you're then taking an engineer away and you don't know what the problem is, that's valuable time that could be spent A, solving the problem to get the customer back online, but B, it could be deployed in a number of other issues where they could be. So I think that allowing the technicians to focus on the problems where they actually are is really valuable from this, and it ultimately leads to the reduction in the cost to serve.
Yeah, and that's and it is a common theme we're seeing across the planet. I mean, the examples here are I think mostly UK, European based, and there's a couple that I'll show from kind of different perspectives, but from a US perspective, it's the same thing. All of the kind of use cases that we see, everyone's targeting, how do we basically do more with less?
Yeah.
And then, so the last point on this slide is, we obviously from a UK perspective, you've got this kind of one-touch switching requirement appearing, and the sort of time compression to move a subscriber and activate service on another network means that you're going to have to automate it. And then, once all of the kind of provisioning, moving over, billing stuff is done, you want some kind of test that says, okay, clear to operate, and billing commences. And again, systems like this enable that. Okay, so we go to the next chart. And again, so this is a kind of worked example, but a very, very kind of high level, simple version of it. Anybody wants to hear, the sort of 2-hour version of this, just get in touch with us and we'll go through it in more detail. Here, you've got the sort of two players, left and right hand side. You've got the retail provider. In the middle, you have the wholesale provider, and as soon as any kind of trouble ticket is raised by the retail provider, what's happened in the UK, for example, we have thousands of these what we call JMEP, so smart SFP pluggables. Again, a different kind of pluggable from the one in the previous presentation. These are deployed exchanges all across the UK in this layer 2 switch, so that where a retail provider connects into the wholesale provider, layer 2 switch, we have one of these devices, and to run this test from the DMARC switch to the actual ONT in the house, fully automated. The ONT is looped back or looped up. We then run a synthetic traffic test for say a minute, couple of minutes, basically packet blasting at the information rate that the subscriber is supposed to get. Loop, down to the ONT, loops back. It's basically, we count them out, we count them back again, sort of thing. And then a set of results is pushed up to our system, and then via netconf yang up into the management system above that. But from the point where that trouble ticket is raised to when the results are available, 2 or 3 minutes, and you've either proved that if you like, that kind of purple section in the middle is clear, or there's an issue with it. But from a demarcation, fault finding, elimination of what could be wrong, 5 minutes you've taken out probably at least half of the kind of service chain, and either said, okay, the issue's in here or it's not. And then you're back to looking at there's something in the house, or there's something in the retail core, or maybe somebody's been trying to get to like a website that was down and they've raised a ticket saying their internet's off. A whole variety of causes that we I mean, some of them are almost comical, some of the stories you hear, but a whole variety outside that chain.
And not to break up your flow too much there, Mark, but I do think that's a good point as well, because customers are getting more and more devices now that are smart devices and can be connected to all sorts of different things, and I don't think the general public are quite aware the sort of the stress that can put on your Wi-Fi network by having all these things connected, especially if you're on a lower service bandwidth as well. So I think that's a great point you raise, and I realise we're kind of running a little bit short on time, so I do want to move on to the next slide just so we can go through some of those examples as well, and then leave some opportunity for questions if there are any. But just to kind of add on to a few of the points that Mark was saying here, these things are we have many of these are installed across the UK, and they're very fast, easy to deploy, don't require any additional power racking or cabling, but you can use existing SFP ports, and it's all centralized and automated with our Fusion platform as well. So Mark, I'll let you go through the next couple of slides as well to show some of these examples here.
Okay, so this one you sort of have to kind of flip around and say, okay, you move away from thinking like the kind of the last mile unbundled provider. So if you were a retail provider, what are the kinds of things that you would have to troubleshoot? So imagine you've raised a ticket, unbundle access says actually we're clear, so it's something either on the left hand side or the right hand side of your network. So from a self-service point of view, you can do things like putting PC agents onto the actual end user. So somebody raises a ticket, you send them an email, they download a small agent, runs a kind of calibrated speed test, gives you information on even what hardware the speed test is running on. I mean, so some of the issues we see are, somebody said, well, I went to my favorite speed test website and I got, a very, very low throughput. And when you dig into it a bit more, it turns out that they're using a sort of 15-year-old laptop, which is covered in kind of bloatware, and the laptop's just not capable of generating the traffic. So even eliminating stuff like that very quickly and without a site visit, again, it's all about that reduced cost to serve. If, again, staying on the kind of right-hand side of this chart, if you do have to send a tech, then there's a variety of instruments that we do, our NSC MTS boxes, which are running layer 4 speed testing technologies, and also testing the house Wi-Fi up to agents that we're hosting on the other side of the chart. So some of our probes and smart SFPs can be deployed at the edge or in the core, and again giving you test points to basically kind of walk along that service chain to work out where the actual cause is, and then even in instances where you've got cloud services, AWS, Azure, etc., you can put agents up into there and test either from your core to the cloud, or actually from the end user premises, be it retail business, etc., up into the cloud. And again, it's all about trying to rapidly demarc where the issue is without people kind of jumping into vans.
And then a question for you, Mark, is what if you own a whole network?
So if you, yeah, I mean, so this one is the sort of classic like altnet model. It seems everybody's kind of laid their network out in a very similar way. So you've got kind of internet peering, access to the internet at the top, set of users down at the bottom, main routes, backup routes, and it's the same thing. You're saying, okay, I'm going to have a set of customers down here, and maybe today I've got 1,000 customers, so I can do it with a few people and a couple of vans. As that scales up, if I don't automate and I don't think about this in advance, then when I get to like 10,000 customers, 20,000 customers, I'm gonna, if I don't have a way to automate it, then I'm basically scaling my field force, my call center in a linear way, and
Exactly.
That over time, that's just going to kill you from profit and loss, shareholder, etc. So here's a very simple one where and very cost effective. You've taken a couple of our smart SFPs and put them into just even a simple switch or router in the main data center and the backup data center. They'll run at 1 gig or 10 gig in terms of the traffic generation. And very simple, you do the same thing as the first example. You're looping the ONT, pushing a set of traffic down to it, counting what comes back, and testing the whole chain, very rapidly. What we see is that smaller networks tend not to host the kind of speed server technologies, so they rely on kind of multiple hops. So you're middle of Cumbria or somewhere like that, you run a speed test and it ends up bouncing off the Isle of Man, and you don't control that. So when your customers raise some kind of issue that says, hey, I'm getting poor throughput, you want to be able to say, listen, the throughput from your house to where the network egress is, here's a calibrated industry standard speed test that we've run that says it's good from your house to where we hand off the traffic. And that's essential, because otherwise you're trying to police a bunch of hops beyond what you can control.
Yeah, well said, Mark. Well said. And I do want to see just if there's any questions. I just thought we'd kind of wrap up with this slide here, and then open up to any questions that Christian or any attendees may have. But basically, the Fusion JMOS Smart SFP system that we're talking about here enables providers to automate their service assurance, save time and reduce costs in the long term, and ultimately dispatch engineers to fix faults, not to find them. So, this really can help you reduce your costs to serve by optimizing and automating your network troubleshooting. Mark, before we kind of go to questions, any closing thoughts from yourself on this?
No, I mean the keyest thing is that kind of breaking the curve. I mean, if you keep going with a kind of fully manual process and keep adding subscribers or new footprint, new districts, then all you're going to do is just kind of keep doing the same thing again and again. I mean, these things. It does take a sort of what's the word? It does take a more kind of planned strategic approach. I mean, you have to sit down and say, we're going to break this curve. We'll have to have some kind of startup costs for automation. We're going to have to do some IT integration. But long term, it's worth it. Every customer we've seen that has done this is seeing the benefits within 9 months, a year, easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, just as we move on to questions, if anyone is going over to FTTH Berlin next week, we will be there. We'll have the Fusion software there for demo, more information. So if anyone wants to see that, we're both SO4 in Berlin next week. But yeah, Chris, I guess I'll hand it back to you. Any questions from you or anyone in the chat?
Yeah, I think I've just got potentially one to close out, and thanks very much for your presentation, Mark and Ross. Very insightful, and I'm sure people like joining you in Berlin for the good German beer that's over there. But one final question.
That's where we're going. That's where we're going.
One final question from me, and you talked about kind of that scale up element of it. I think as the altnets start to consolidate, you've also got people looking as the exit and to add value. Kind of what does that product and service add in terms of value if you're looking at kind of a potential buyer or a potential investor? Where does that sit? Where does Viavi's portfolio sit within that?
I think it's in terms of profitability. I mean, if you are, you know, it's like any business. If you're trying to, you know, buy or sell a business, it's all about the money, basically. If you have a business which is marginally profitable because you're spending, you know, hundreds of thousands on techs, vans, equipment, depreciation, all the other stuff that comes with it, or you're running a business which is, you know, decently profitable, because you've been a bit smarter, you've got less techs, you've got less vans, the associated equipment, depreciation, etc., is smaller. Your P&L looks better. Then clearly, you know, given a choice of kind of two companies to go after, you're going to go after the one that's been a bit smarter and is a bit more profitable.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And in terms of implementation times, generally, what do you see from customers? And I suppose it depends on the scale of the network.
Yes, yeah, it depends on the scale. I mean, some of this stuff you can have it going within about 2 weeks. And believe it or not, some of that's actually the internal time to start up. You know, you go to the IT department and ask for, you know, a virtual machine to be created. Some companies can do a VM in a day. Some companies can take 3 months.
And we often do, you know, proof of concepts for these things as well, you know, and that's generally the process that we always go under is go through those proof of concepts to iron out any integration issues before we go to full rollout, but which can all be done, you know, as Mark's saying, relatively quickly or within a few weeks anyway. So yeah, again, it's all dependent on the network and how it's all built out.
Well, it makes sense, and I'm sure that the guys on the call and we'll be recording this and putting out if they want to get in touch, can contact you by the emails you've put in the slides there. But yeah, thank you very much both for your time. I think that's all we've got time for today. So just before we end, I wanted to highlight that ISPA's got a couple of events coming up soon. So we have the Parliament Internet Conference next week, which is on the 20th of March. That's a full house at the moment. We've got some very senior speakers from across government and industry. So it should be very insightful, especially with the general election on the cards and where we see the industry going over the next 5 years. And then also to flag, on the 2nd of July, we have our annual ISP Business Summit, which welcomes partners alongside members. We'd expect 200 attendees on the day for a series of panels and workshops and exhibiting. So there's an opportunity to meet all the guys that I've spoke today there as well. So yeah, thanks very much all for joining, and I hope to see you again on the next ISPA Marketplace. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks very much, everyone. Bye.
Thanks,